It is a Sunday, unlike other countries, so you can help us with the opening prayer. Is someone on this platform or hasn't yet joined, or any volunteer could give us the opening prayer?
Shall we just pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to have this webinar. How we ask you in a special way that may you be here with us and may you lead this path. For we pray in the loving name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and our Savior. Amen.
Thank you so much. We will summarize the prayer. It's like somebody's underpinning the problem statement there to the point, and I was wondering Pentecostals may go into tanks. Thank you so much. And we now come to the opening remarks and observing protocol. Just as I hinted, I was just trying to form the chair. I've already introduced myself. So the research again, as a matter of emphasis, or the webinar is actually premised on conducting a successful research. You can call it a quality research, but at the end of the day, it's a successful research. And so now we are saying that yes, when you are doing a PhD, you are doing a master's, but PhD, it's a wrong journey. You have a wrong journey, and you need actually to be sharpened by those who are ahead of us, those who actually will be the iron sharpened irons. But you have got those that you're looking up to. We say these are impeccable skills coupled with the pedigree, and they're able to shape us into the right scholars that we ever sent to be. I will not waste much time. Just to say that we will not be asking questions after a presentation is done. Where are all the presentations to be done? After which we shall now open Q&A, questions and answers, sessions where there's coherence and consistency in our presentation. So the questions that we have when our facilitator is actually presenting, we can write them down and then come on and ask later. So the first session, we shall start with Dr. Nzovwa. I hope I'm pronouncing the name properly. And we shall have the second session with Dr. Lole. And the third session, we shall have it with Mr. Malambo, a PhD student candidate. Then the last session will be with Professor Bupe, GM Mwanza. Then, as I alluded to, at between 1840 and 1850, we shall have questions and answers with the speakers. And we shall have the closing remarks and then vote of thanks. Okay. As a matter of just doing some protocols, allow me to just to invite our facilitators already in there, already joined in, just to greet us. I call upon Dr. Nzovwa to just greet us. Then I'll move on to other facilitators. After which we will now start our first session. Dr. Nzovwa, if you are around, I've joined already, and greet your people. One patient waiting to hear from you. Just get them, then we run it through. Yes, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope we're having a wonderful Sunday. I'm sure it's Sunday everywhere right now. Just please allow me to say thank you to Joseph and team for setting this up, and of course for the invitation. I am greatly humbled to be given this opportunity to come and share some little knowledge. And I'm saying little because learning doesn't it never ends. I've realized that even after graduating, I keep learning new things every day. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nzovwa. And indeed, learning is an ongoing process. We start from the home of the graveyard. You find that even those who died are more experienced than those who are dying. Okay? So you have to be again experienced. You have to be again indoctrinated in the aspect of keeping silence when you pass. I call upon Dr. Makipeza Lole to also just greet your people who are waiting to hear from you as we progress. Thank you very much, colleagues. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for this opportunity to interact with you and share the little that I have. I am looking forward to a great webinar. But let's all enjoy ourselves. Let's learn. Let's teach each other. And Malambo as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. Mr. Malambo, our PhD student, candidate, greet your people.
Distinguished speakers, moderator, colleagues, researchers, and all participants, I greet you all, and thank you so much for joining this research webinar. Hope we will be able to engage and learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Malambo. I'm soon to be crowned the doctor. Yeah, it's interesting. When we do first degree, we do masters, you think you know how to actually frame the problem statement. When you started your PhD, wrote the problem statement, they say, yeah, I'm not seeing a problem. What model have you used to frame a problem? I say, there's a model at this. Is it ICA model? Is it which model are you using to actually frame your problem? Is it PEMICA model? So now those are issues now that you come to learn to say, sure, this is serious engagement. At this juncture, I don't know if we have the Professor Bupe, or should be presenting at 18:05 Is she with us? Professor Bupe, I don't know if she's with us. Mr. Malambo, did you confirm that she's with us? Or should we join that time?
She'll be joining very soon.
Okay. If she joins, we shall allow her to introduce herself later. Then at this juncture, unless I've left out any discussant, I think I've finished all the facilitators I think I've spoken to, except to Professor Bupe. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, at this juncture now, allow me to call upon the first facilitator, and this none other than Dr. Nzovwa. Dr. Nzovwa will run us through from now up to it was supposed to be 16 but we are going to manage the time. Dr. Nzovwa, remove the fear out of us and bring us up to speed so that we gain the confidence that you people have gained. I call upon you.
Thank you, Chair. Please confirm that you can see my slide, and let me try and move.
Yes, your slide is visible.
And are they moving? Yes, they are. Okay, perfect. Once again, thank you so much for this opportunity. So I know I have about 30 minutes, and to try and just stay within time, I have about 12 slides. So I will try and others. I'm looking at the time. Okay, please allow me to. So I'll be speaking on understanding the research problem and developing research objectives. I think these are very deep topics. They're very deep. Maybe for the future, the organizers could consider just having specific. You present on research problems, and then you present on research objectives so that it is more beneficial. So what I would do is just give an overview, hoping that from here people will take an interest and then do their own deep dive. But I will just be giving an overview. That is why actually I have about 12 slides. So in terms of what we'll be covering today, I'll be touching on the research problem and then sources of the research problem, the statement of the problem, the linkage between the problem and the objectives, and then aim/purpose of the study, and then also touching on research objectives. You've noticed already that here I have added aim. I'm just going to speak just high level on it, hoping that for the future we can do a deep dive. Okay? So at this point, let me ask, what comes first? Topic versus research problem. When we are starting our research, what comes first? Anyone to... Which one comes first between the topic? Terry, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Doc. I'm thinking the research problem should start first in order to feed into the topic. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I saw, is it Charles? Also, there's someone else who, yes, I see we have problem, and I saw another post that said problem. Okay, that is good. Yes. So what comes first? Whenever you are thinking of conducting a study, the first thing is identify a problem, right? Identify a problem before you even go to start thinking about, this is the topic that I'm going to study, but then now I need to go into where is the problem within this topic that I want to study. And I have to confess that when I was starting my journey, I had an idea of, I want to study this. That was a topic. I had an idea of a topic. But I later got to learn that actually it is the problem that I should first identify a problem before I even think of, I want to study on the conceptualization of village banking groups. You have to do a deep dive to look for what the problem is. So just to give us an idea, a topic is the broad area that you care about. So in my case, my broad area was informal savings and lending groups. That is things like the village banking groups, the Chilimbas. For those who are in Zambia, the Chilimbas. If you've heard of the Stockwells from South Africa, the Sasas, I believe from, is it Kenya or those areas? Yeah, so the topic is the broad area. So it tells us the field and not what you're actually going to do. You're not the research task. So for example, it could be mobile money, adoption among SMEs. Of course, again, it goes beyond this because you also have to include in the topic of your study, you have to include where you're conducting your study, and in some cases, people advise that you also include an indication of what kind of study, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. So this is just to give us an idea that the topic is the broad area. And then the research problem is, what is that specific issue? What is the puzzle that you're trying to, fix? A puzzle that you're trying to understand. What is the contradiction that you've seen between two sides? What is the gap that you've identified? I'll touch a bit on the gap. Or maybe what is the tension that you have noticed in a real setting that you feel needs more evidence? So an example of this would be, despite high mobile money access, many SMEs still avoid formal digital credit. Okay? This is just to give us an example. And some of the pitfalls around topic and research problems that students face, even I have faced, like I said in opening, is you identify what you are interested in, but not the problem itself that needs to be investigated. So I identified my area of interest was informal savings and lending groups. But what about informal savings and lending groups? That is what was missing when I was starting out. Okay? So just a good rule of thumb, a good problem explains what is not yet understood. what is it that is not yet understood in informal savings and lending groups? Why does it matter? And where is it going to be studied? Okay, that's just to give us overview. And then moving on now, okay, what makes a strong research problem? So a strong research problem is supposed to, when you have identified your research problem, it should at least have these areas. So there should be a context. Where is the issue located? Are you looking at a particular sector? Are you looking at a country? Are you looking at a group? Are you looking at an organization, or is it a policy setting? So in my case, for example, it was informal savings and lending groups, that is the informal financial sector. I was looking at Zambia, but because I couldn't study the whole Zambia, I was looking at Lusaka. The group, I was looking at informal savings and lending groups themselves. I was looking at marketeers. Okay, so you have to, your research problem has to have a context. And then evidence. For those who have attended the defenses or presentations by people you've heard, what shows that there is actually a real problem, a real issue? Is it statistics, for example? Are you showing that, in my case, how many people are unable to access formal financial services? Is there a policy problem? Can you highlight what a problem, so that this is the problem that exists in policy? Is there an issue in practice? Are there contradictions? You have your statement, your research problem has to have evidence. And then knowledge gap. Is there a knowledge gap? What is it that is not yet known? You know, when students are presenting, I've also done it. So when I say when students, I'm including myself in this. So when students are presenting you, when someone asks what is the problem or where is the gap, no, there was insufficient literature. You know, there was there's missing knowledge. So identify beyond just stating that there was a gap in knowledge. What is it that is not yet known? Okay, what have previous studies explained, which they haven't yet reached to a point where you say, okay, this has been explained. And then significance. Why should anyone care? There's a question that is usually asked when presentations are being made, to say, what would happen if your study is not conducted? So that is where the significance lies. Why should people care about what you're doing? If you don't do your study, then what? Is life going to be disrupted in any way? Is anything going to be missing? That is where the significance comes in. So for the statement, your research problem, someone who's looking at your document or your research, or someone who's listening to you, they should be able to see where is the real issue. Okay, is it the gap? What is the value in you conducting that study? Okay, so some of the areas where we find research problems. Overall, let me just mention that we identify problems by reading. That is the one thing that will help you easily identify where your problem is. Reading, read. Because then you get to see what have others done, what is the missing, what is the gap. Did someone use maybe only qualitative or quantitative? Do we need a mixed method? Is there some evidence missing? Maybe they conducted research in this particular population, but you feel that when you conduct it in another population, you get more context, and therefore you add more value. Also, research problems come from practical problems. As we are working, as we're going about our daily lives, right? Some of us are working. You identify, maybe there's this that is not working well in my organization. You see, how is it happening in other organizations as well? Is this a real issue that would warrant you spending time on it to do your research? Methodological gap, I've touched on it when I talked about quantitative, qualitative. Look at what maybe something hasn't been studied well. Like I mentioned, maybe someone just conducted a qualitative study, but then there is need for a quantitative study. You feel that, okay, there's more to be gained by conducting a mixed method study and things like that. And then also in some cases we've heard of theoretical gaps, right? So is there a concept or a model that is not fully explaining the area that you are studying? Something that would be helpful in trying to understand the different gaps or how to identify research problems is I would advise you look up Miles' research gaps, MILES research gaps. It's taxonomy something, I forgot the actual word, but then that gives you there about 7 areas in which when you look at your literature, when you look at documents, you can identify, okay, there's a literature gap here, there's a population gap, there's this gap that is missing. So you might do well to look up Miles' taxonomy of gaps. I will type in the actual name in the chat once I'm done, and then I look it up. So which problems usually come from interest alone? Yes, we have interests that we are maybe emotional about, that we see. When I see informal savings and lending groups, it baffles me to say this is such a great tool that would help advance many people's lives. But then why aren't more people getting into it? I'm emotional about it. But then beyond emotion, I need to be able to provide some evidence to show that yes, this is an actual problem. Okay. So today I was actually touching on something that I was going to speak on, the ICA model. So you've identified your research problem, but how do you put it in writing? I also mentioned that there is statement of the problem and then problem statement. You will notice also that these two are used interchangeably. For some, statement of the problem, which is actually the term that is used in our postgraduate guidelines by Mwanza, it says statement of the problem. But then in some cases, someone might say, okay, what is your problem statement? If you presented statement of the problem, and then someone asks you, okay, what is the problem statement? Consider that maybe they are asking you, what is the one line that is speaking to your problem? This you can look up in literature to see when one is used, but at Mwanza, the term that is used in our guidelines is statement of the problem. So you've identified your research problem. Now, how do you write it? Okay. I need the Africa model to give us an idea on how to write this, because I've noticed that is the one model that many people use. Someone is making a presentation, usually asked, how did you use the Africa model? Or someone asks, what is the reality? So when someone asks a question of what is the reality in this statement that you've given us, what is the reality? That goes to show that they're asking for something to be presented maybe in the line of the ICA model, which ICA is IRCA. So I is ideal, reality, R is reality, C is consequences, and then A is aim. So when you're writing your statement of the problem, you have to be able to, what is the ideal situation? So in this case, this example is ideally people who have a degree may have chances of getting a job. That is what you think should be the case. But what is the reality? So the reality is that many people who have degrees are still unemployed. Okay? Here you actually have to include to say many people, so you even include a statistic, because it's not enough to say many people. What if you're just assuming that it is many people, but someone out there has actually conducted a study and there's percentages, there's statistics that are showing how many people. So you might be thinking that, oh, maybe the many people here is a number, meanwhile it's just 30%. Argue, or it's just 5%, then use a lower percentage, maybe it's just 5%. So someone might ask you, okay, if we have 95% who are in employment, then why should we conduct a study on the 5% and why it's many? So it will also help you see whether there is actually a real problem. Okay? So you include your statistics there. Consequences. So consequently, the example here says, consequently, many people may not be motivated to further their studies through a degree level. That is because the reality at the top there, the second line is many people who have degrees are still unemployed. As a consequence, many people may not be motivated to further their studies to so having laid out clearly your ideal, your reality, and your consequences, what are you doing about it? And that is where now the aim comes in. So this study aims to explore why people who have a degree are still unemployed. This is just one example of the models that are out there on how to present your statement of the problem or problem statement, depending on how you want to call it. So there are other models, but this is the one that is usually asked about when people are making presentations. Okay. So just to give us an idea on some of the items that we should look out for. So this is just a checklist that you could use to see if your statement has the key elements. So a statement of the problem, a good statement of the problem has to be based on evidence. That is why when someone is making a presentation even on PowerPoint, we ask, okay, you've put maybe 100,000 people, okay, where is the evidence coming from? But if you cite, if you show where you picked that information from, anyone who wants to verify will even move forward with your study can go to that same author, that same document that you cited in your research. So make sure that it is based on verifiable evidence, and then it is free from emotion or personal bias. Remember what I talked about to say, I'm passionate about this area, but then it has to be beyond emotions. Okay? This is where I think now the question of are you ethic or ethic comes in sometimes when someone is presenting, because it's clear when someone is emotional or passionate about something, it is very, very clear. And then the third item there that I've listed is a good statement of the problem has to be turned into questions and objectives. As we're going to talk about the aims and objectives. And then there has to be evidence or importance. Why should you spend time on your study? What is the consequence? Okay. And it clearly identifies the research gap. Where is the gap? What are you coming in to do? Okay. So we've touched on the statement of the problem, but what is the linkage between statement of the problem, the aim, and research objectives? So the statement of the problem, it shows what is wrong, what is unclear, what is missing, or what is not adequately understood. And of course, remember, evidence is very key. You might avoid being emotional, but speak with evidence, because that gives you backing. Okay, it shows that there is actually a real problem here. So then moving on to the aim, once you've had your problem is identified there, the aim now, what is the study going to do about the problem that you've identified? Okay, so the aim of the study or purpose of the study is the study's overall response to the problem. What is it that you're doing? And then moving on now to research objectives. Layout in the other guidelines. So you have the other parts, but for this part I'm talking about just you have your statement of the problem there, and then you move on to the aim of the study, and then you move on to your research objectives. That's how the outline is. So research objectives is break out the aim that you have, which is responding to the problem into specific and manageable steps. This is a big problem, but you can't tackle it just as it is. You have to break it up into smaller, manageable steps. What are you going to do? Okay. So moving on, aim or purpose of the study. So this is now the overall intention of the study. Okay, so it will have things like state what the study intends to test, determine, examine, or establish, and then it has to be linked directly to the title of your study. In another presentation, organizers, I think it would be ideal for us to have a presentation on what the body of thread is, just to show how the different parts of the research tie into each other. If you heard, there are usually questions on, can you demonstrate or can you show us the body of thread in this your study? Okay. So there has to be linkage. It's not a standalone. There is also issues of variables, dependent variables that come into it. So anyway, the aim or the purpose of the study has to be directly linked to the title, to the study title, and then it has to reflect the main focus of the research. You can't have your research problem or your statement of the problem saying one thing and then your aim is saying another. So those two have to be connected, which can, if you look at the golden thread that I'm talking about, it is very clear. Okay? And then provide the overall direction of the study. I left out a Y. But yes, provide the overall direction of the study. Okay? So just to give us an example, let's say my title is the influence of financial literacy on the use of financial services among market traders in Osaka, right? I could phrase my aim in the aim of this study is to determine the influence of financial literacy on the use of formal financial services among market traders in Osaka. In Osaka, so you can see the title, I'm talking about financial services. Again, even the aim, I'm talking about financial services. Who are the people? Market traders in Osaka. And even the aim, I'm talking about market traders in Osaka. That is okay. So research objectives. I want you to repeat this from this is from the USA guidelines. Research objectives, there's two. So you have your general objective, not objectives, general objective, and then also you have the specific objectives. But when you look at the guideline, it says you having a general objective is optional. Okay? So the general objective, if you decide to have it in your as part of your research, it states the broad knowledge that the study is expected to obtain. So what is it that your study is obtaining? What exactly are you doing? Okay? So it specifies the kind of knowledge the study is expected to obtain, and then it clearly states what is to be described, determined, identified, compared, or in the case of hypothesis, what you want to confirm. This is optional, so it's not a must-have. But maybe your supervisor might say include the general objective. Or a question might come up to say, why don't you have a general objective? You may refer to the guidelines, the postgraduate guidelines, to say the guidelines say that it is optional. Okay? Specific objectives. So now, specific objectives, these are now the smaller step by step, right? The smaller steps that you're taking into attacking your aim as well as the general objective. So aim and general, they are overall. But then what exactly are you doing step by step? What are you going to do to achieve that aim or to achieve that objective? So specific objectives, they have to be focused on the statement of the problem. Remember, I talked about the golden thread. So they have to be focused on the statement of the problem. What is the problem that you've identified? And then there has to be a clear linkage between the aim and the study title. Okay. This again in this part, on this alone, there's issues of what your independent variables are, what your dependent variable, the variables come into play here. And then your specific objectives have to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. I can't be talking about, as a PhD student or candidate, I can't be talking about conducting a study, say, I want to conduct a study on a policy to assess how it has been implemented or the effect it has had. We know the policy is maybe running for a period of 5 years, but my study is ending halfway through. So you have to be realistic. If you're looking at, let's just give us an example. So if, for example, you're looking at a particular policy that is ending in, say, 2028, and then for you want to see the impact it has had, consider what would be a good time frame. Maybe your time frame is falling, it's not attainable. It's not possible for you to have gathered, to have access to sufficient information that would speak into the effects of that policy. So consider those things. That's why it has to be realistic, it has to be attainable, it has to be time bound. And then write using clear action plans. So there are There are verbs. There is also again another list of verbs that gives you. There is high level action verbs that you can use in your study as you're writing your objectives, and then there are the lower level ones that you can use. All right. Again, there's a document that you can refer to. I should have put that there. There's a document I'll post in the chat. There's a document that you can look at which talks about the different kinds of verbs that you can use. Some are high level. Adding to knowledge, there are things that you have to go deeper into. You have to carry some level of weight into it, and then also your specific objectives have to be answered through data collection and analysis. This again, I think, speaks into being realistic. You can't start wishing. It's nice to have wishful thinking, but then be realistic about what you can do. You can't take on the whole world. If you remember when I was talking about context, I did say maybe you want to conduct a study in Zambia. And then Zambia is very big. So you might want to break it down into, okay, the problem is in Zambia, but then how much can I take? Maybe let me look at, can I break up this problem into something that is manageable, something that can be if the prevalence of the problem is more in Lusaka, like there's higher numbers showing evidence of the problem in Lusaka. Okay? So just to, as an overview, in order to remain focused on the problem, objectives should not be more than 3 for masters and not more than 5 for PhD students. This is a guide that is there in the postgraduate guidelines under Mwanza. And then the objectives have to be focused on the statement of the problem, and I've said they have to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And then indicate specific activities that you as a researcher will carry out. Okay? So this is where I end my presentation. It was very, very high level. I do hope that we'll have more time to do a deeper dive in future. In the meantime, as I've said, let me move on. Mouse is about the gaps, and then the objectives. I'll post them in the chat. Thank you so much.
Quite insightful and quite insightful. We can give a round of applause through our. Okay, that is interesting. And so before I bring the next speaker, okay, so this was Dr.
Chair, let me help you. It's Nzovwa.
Okay, Dr. Nzovwa, sorry. Okay, so thank you so much, Doc. And Doc was actually simplified. She began by asking on what you should start with. Is the problem, is it identifying a problem or identifying a topic? And yeah, these are some of the challenges that we have in where you start, you want to what was the topic. But then the reality now don't to say no, actually it's the other way around. So she has actually underpinned and said the topic is actually it's a broader area which underpins the field. She has also actually summarized how we can actually at PhD level write the problem, the research problem. She has actually used the income model, meaning you look at what is ideal, what is ideal, what's the reality, and what are the consequences of the cause. Then what is the aim or the limitation you are trying to provide. Then meaning you are talking about the gap that you may have already identified. Is the literature gap, practical gap, intellectual gap, theory and attention of us. So she spoke to so many issues. Of course, she made mention that there are so many models, such as PEMICA, which starts with the problem, magnitude, evidence, consequences, or the cost. Then She also talked about the aim, the specific objectives, and the questions, the hypothesis. And she's actually mirroring a presentation to the guidelines of the University of Zambia, whereas the general objective may not be there because it is actually optional. And she said you have to be very careful when you are framing the aim, the objectives, and the questions. And because these have to actually follow and be what they call the thread, or the so-called the Trinity, so that they actually are speaking to each other. And when framing the objectives, we're supposed to use acronym SMART, which says that we have to be specific, measurable, attainable. They have to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And they do not actually. This is the summary of what she actually gave us. And I know our people are still taking the points, so they can come and ask where they wish. We hope to remain with us because when we are done, there will be questions, there will be clarifications, so that you also help us to attain this milestone that you people have already attained. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call upon Dr. Matipeza. Lole, I hope he is ready to usher us into the second session, and he will pick it up definitely from where Dr. Nzovwa ended. And if there's anything hard, you actually guide us. Dr. Matipeza, at this juncture, I call upon you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Maybe just confirm.
You are loud and clear, Doc.
All right, thank you very much, Chair. And Dr. Nzovwa, thank you for that wonderful presentation. Let me build from it. We'll get into the oven now. We're going to be talking about the methodology. We look at how you get started, definition, what it is, the types, what is involved in terms of the research design, framing techniques, data collection, issues of validity, ethical considerations. All of these are under methodology. It's a very, very important chapter. But Chair, let me ask him to say to my colleagues on the call, when you look at these visuals, if you are looking at the text, what do you think of? I won't be able to see it. Anyone can just open their mic and try to briefly just, when you look at that picture on the left side, there the cake, or the cakes, or whatever, the muffins, and then the other picture on the right, just quickly, just open the eyes. Anyone, colleagues? The Malambo, Chair.
Yes, you actually very what people had thinking. Okay, this does not decide the graphics to
Okay, so in the interest of time, you see, when you look at those scones, perhaps on the left, the muffins, and underneath you see the ingredients, you definitely know that for those cakes, those scones to come out nicely, there was a method behind it. There were eggs, there was flour, there was milk, but there was a certain way it was mixed to come out in that manner. There was sugar, etc. And when you visualize, you want to build the house on the right there. That house that it does not sprout from nowhere. Definitely, you visualize the concept, then you go to those grow plants, and then you have your plan there. It's talking to a methodology. So I'm just trying to open our minds to say what is the method, what is methodology. Just like now, we know if you are to do your thesis or your dissertation, this is structure. That is there, where it's clearly laid out, where you have your introduction, where you are talking of your research questions, just like Dr. Nzovwa was giving us, the aims and objectives, and then you obviously get out your literature review and you come to the issue of methodology. What is the method you're going to apply? What is the design you're going to put in there? Do you make use of? What are the ethical considerations? Are there any limitations? Then obviously you go to the other areas. your findings, etc. But obviously, the starting point when you are now carrying out your research, you are saying to yourself, how do I start? Where do I start from? Because if your topic is exploratory or confirmatory, what does it mean? So exploratory, it means you are utilizing a qualitative methodology where you are going to be looking at making use of interviews, focus groups, and the other ways of gathering the data. And confirmatory, you are on the quantitative side where you are going to be maybe measuring or using surveys. So it's a very important starting point when you start to think of your research. You have your problem. Obviously, your problem, you're saying, how am I going to solve this problem? And your methodology comes in. So, by way of definition, it's a systematic way. It's a way you have a systematic way. You're carrying out a theoretical analysis of the methods that you're going to use. So your concepts, your theories, and your principles, these are all going to guide the research process that you're now going to take and identify the problem. It's important because if you want to methodology, they need to give you a structure of how you're going to approach that research. That research is important because it must enhance the reliability and validity. Your findings, if they're not reliable, if they're not valid, colleagues, then you have no research. That should be very clear from the onset. So sometimes we also think of this get confused. What does that mean? Does it mean in research there is a why? Why are you carrying out that research? So there's a strategy that you have in your mind. You have principles, you have rules that you must follow. But before you get there, you as a researcher, what are you going to use? What are your beliefs? Because your beliefs, they govern your research. So there is this foundational reasoning for why specific methods are appropriate for study goals. Principles that are different. Overall plan of the house that you just saw on the first slide. Then the method now is the broader now theoretical and philosophical framework, which is justifying the tools that you're going to use, the what and the how of the data collection. How are you going to collect the data? What methods are you going to use? So it's like concrete, practical techniques, the ways, the interviews, the surveys. If it is an experiment, a total experiment that you're going to carry out, that's the method. So that's the distinction that we need to understand. But what is very important, colleagues, when you talk of methodology, you need to ask yourself, what is your paradigm? What is your philosophy? What are your underlying beliefs and assumptions? Because these are what you're going to use to guide the research process. And also, you want to create knowledge in the process and interpret the knowledge to be onto new knowledge. But what are your beliefs? So, your paradigm, it influences your research design, your methodology, and your data analysis is very, very, very important for you as a researcher to understand what your standpoint is. Because if you don't understand that, if you don't know that, then how are you going to carry the research? How are you going to identify the problem? Just like Dr. Nzovwa gave us earlier on. So, why it's important? So, when you look at your beliefs or your philosophy, for example, if you believe in objective facts, then it means you're a positivist. And if you accept that there is a bit of uncertainty, and also you need to rely on empirical methods, that's positivism. And you are believing that the subjective experience is out there in multiple realities, it means you're an interpretivist. You're going to go out there to carry out interviews to try and understand the multiple realities, the many realities that are there in a community that you want to go and study. And if you're prioritizing something that is practical, you want a practical solution to the problem that you have identified with the flexible approaches, you're a pragmatist. These are things that you need to understand. And if you are studying something that is got hidden structures in a society, and yet that those structures are actually influencing what is happening, it's structuralism. And if you then say it's not a straight jacket, there is fluidity, and maybe there are other issues where the society is depending on other issues, it's post-structuralism. And the other extreme end, if you believe that all in this world is existing independently of my perceptions, but also knowledge is fallible and is fallible, and also that reality, you don't see reality firsthand. So that's critical realism. So you must know where you stand, where you are positioned, what are your beliefs. And the tip here is to say you need to design, when you look at your methodology, you choose a method that speaks to I was talking about. You must align those things. They must be aligned. So your title there or topic is talking to your research questions, the research aim, the research objectives, that alignment, that golden thread, continuous methodology. It must come out. So what determines the choice of that methodology that you have chosen? So this is the objective. What do you want to achieve at the end of the project? And what is the significance of statistics? Do you require concise and data-driven research results? Or the research questions, do they require an understanding of physics? So you're going to use statistics, and you are looking at the opinions, the motivations, and what is the nature of the research. So, like I said earlier on, if it is exploratory, it means then you're going to go qualitative. So, and if your objectives are to measure, we already know that you are into quantitative. You want to measure or test something. Again, what is the sample size? How big is it? The sample size is important because it can also determine your data gathering methods. Are you going to use one percent, smaller samples, online surveys? If you are going for a larger sample, all these are very, very important when you're looking at your methodology. And again, the issue of time. Do you have any time constraints? What techniques are you going to use? So if there's more time available, it means you can collect the data with the ample time. So all those things are very, very key in terms of your choice of methodology. But again, why methodology research? So number one, you want to contribute to new knowledge. We know that every research, almost every research that is undertaken, someone somewhere has done something about it. But there's always improvement, continuous improvement. So if you want to introduce something innovative, you are tapping into an existing method already. You want to introduce something, and maybe you want to address identified knowledge gaps. So you want to contribute to new knowledge. Also, methodology is foundation for future research. The blueprints for other scholars to adapt on find, they are found there in the future of research. You want to extend context. You look at your methodology, what was done prior to the new blueprint you want to bring in. You also want to enhance dependability. Research has to be dependable. So, if, for example, some of you may be lucky to get funding for your research projects, you need to make sure that it is dependable. no one is going to fund something that is not dependable because it is of no use. Publications, you cannot publicize something that is not dependable. Even those publications will not do that. Also, the issue of interdisciplinary collaboration. Your social science methods can also be used to assess educational interventions, which also brings in issues of collaboration from other departments or areas, which is very important. We come to the types of research processes or methodologies. There are 3 types: the quantitative research, where you focus on quantitative, you are quantifying data and you generalize your results from the sample of a population. Inferential statistics and statistical tools that you may use, for example, SPSS is what you may use there. We all must be invested in such tools. I think if you go onto the internet, you find that there is a lot in terms of such statistical tools that you can utilize, even on sampling. All those things are available. So that's a quantitative research. Very important. And as a positivist, it's one area that you need to be well versed in. And then there's qualitative research, which explores phenomena. And it uses non-numerical data and emphasizes on understanding of human behavior, your lived experiences. You want to find out the people in Kariba, how they live in terms of their day-to-day life. They don't work, but they do fishing. How do they fish? How do they feed their families? You go there, and you are staying with them, you're asking them, you're finding out. That's one such method you can employ. So you use your focus group interviews and content analysis. Again, in vivo is one common tool that is used. The mixed method where you're combining quantitative and qualitative, so that you get a broader perspective on research questions. So you start off with perhaps you start off with your quantitative part, where you're looking at numbers, and then you have people coming in to support what is found out in terms of interviews. You are having a voice coming after the numbers, because sometimes the numbers don't give you a full story. You want to understand things, and you're using the power of mixed methods. So there's a number of designs that you can employ as a way of going through the methodological field. You have descriptive, correlational, and experimental, which you can find on the side of qualitative. Correlational, for example, you are looking at relationships between variables. Remember earlier in our conversation, Dr. Nzovwa was talking of variables as well. And I think it's an area where if we get time, we also need to say what are variables, dependent, independent, what happens. And then when you look at correlation, what's happening? Experimental, you're manipulating again those variables to establish cause and effect through your quantitative methods. So you also have quasi-experimental research design, and you have a case study where you're looking in depth, maybe an organization, the Zambia electricity supply, what's happening, why is there no electricity, what's happening? You're asking the workers there, and then it becomes a case study. And then you have other decisions that you take or undertake over an extended period of time. You are observing what are the changes that are happening in the first quarter, the second quarter. It's a longitudinal research design that you can actually also undertake cross-sectional at a certain point in time. You freeze time. You're looking at Zimbabwe during the 2026 election, or Zambia, the August elections. What happened during that time? So it's a cross-sectional research design. All these are some of the designs that I'm just bringing. And the explanatory research design, you want to explain reasons behind a certain observed phenomenon. Again, explanatory, and descriptive research, it befits that. Then action research, you actually participate in a real world setting. I know my daughter is studying somewhere out there. She was getting this type of research. She went to a kindergarten, where they are doing their kids that come in somewhat disabled, and she was looking into how the recreation was there. They don't have a where children are also supposed to go and play games and things like that. So such type of research, that design is an action research design. Now, the question is, how do you pick the right research design? Obviously, Eugene has started from a research problem, as Dr. Nzovwa has expounded earlier on. But here are some tips. If you want to describe, you go for a descriptive design. If you want to explore, exploratory design. If you want to test cause and effect, experimental or quasi-experimental, like I highlighted. If you want to find relationships, correlational. But obviously, you need to understand and know that correlational comes under quantitative, for example. Exploratory is coming under qualitative, for example. And if you need in-depth analysis, you go for a case study. And as I mentioned again, now we're looking at a longer time, a year or two, depending on what you're studying, and the one point in time cross-sectional. So that's how you pick the research design. But colleagues, having said all this, designs and those review, one important aspect that comes is very, very important, which is the sampling techniques. If you think of a cake, you are cutting a slice from the cake that you're going to use as a sample. So the techniques, they determine how participants are selected for the study, and they also influence the study's generalizability and validity. So the types of sampling, there's probability sampling, where each member of the population is a known or a non-zero chance of being selected. So you have a number of ways you can do it: random, stratified, and then 2-3 more other ways of you can do it. Usually it's used for quantitative studies. And then you have non-probability sampling. This selection is based on subjective judgment rather than random selection. Your convenience sampling, for example, and purposive sampling in qualitative study. You know that you want to start people with HIV, so you use snowball sampling, where you identify one, the other will tell you, and it goes on, they lead you to the other, and so on, until you reach saturation level, where you are no longer getting any more new insights from the questions you are giving out, or you want to find out from the subjects. Sampling is quite a huge area in itself. What I've just done is just touch the high level. It can also need its own time, because when you go to quantitative sampling, there are some guidelines or there's a table on the internet where you can actually go there. If you have a sample size, you just feed it in and it gives you a sample. All those things are quite exciting, but in the interest of time, we will not be able to get into all those into detail. But it's important to know that from your methodology, whatever design you've chosen, you need to come out with a sample where you will have to collect the data from. So, quantitative data collection, for example, how do you collect the data if you're doing quantitative research? You have your surveys and questionnaires that maybe you can miss online, and you have to indicate that your survey, you actually used maybe WhatsApp or whatever that you used to launch out the survey, a monthly survey or whatever it is that you use. And then, of course, there are experiments that you can carry out using quantitative data collection. So when you carry out those experiments, you collect the data. And also you can use observational methods. And when it comes to qualitative, like I mentioned earlier, you do have interviews that can be structured or semi-structured or unstructured. You can actually also have focus groups, where you have maybe a group of 10, 15, 12 people coming together. You're asking them. Of course, it has its merits and demerits again. Sometimes people can get excited They can be influenced by the others, but it's one way of collecting information qualitatively. Then ethnographic studies, like I hinted on earlier on, you're studying, you go somewhere, you're looking at a certain group of people, and things like that. So, again, also need to know that you must link to your problem, to your research design, to your sample collection, how you determine your sample, and then you apply. Then mixed methods is combining both the surveys and interviews where you are getting comprehensive insights. Now you have used your survey under quantitative. Again, there are designs that I'm not going to get into. Mixed method, it has got its own designs that you can use, but in the interest of time, I think it's to be subject for another time. It's quite a big area. So, as you have your survey, you've done your quantitative, your numbers, you've done them. Then again, on that same group, if it is school-wide, students are failing, maybe you're comparing two groups of students or two schools, you have the statistics quantitatively, then you have your qualitative coming in, you ask, you get out interviews, you find out why, then you have your numbers being supported or being explained by the qualitative information which is coming in. Maybe the teachers are coming drunk, maybe they are not teaching the correct thing, but the numbers will not tell you. So this is where the power of mixed methods comes in. And again now, having gotten that information, you want to analyze. It's part of methodology again. Quantitative analysis, you are using your descriptive statistics, the mean, the median, the mode, the average. What average age was there on those school students and things like that. And if it is more complex, inferential statistics, like I said, you carry out your teachers, you are comparing your two groups. If there are more, you are going to ANOVA, and then you go into regression analysis. All those are ways of analyzing the data that you've collected. But on the qualitative side, you use themes, you use content, and then you have grounded theory. Sometimes when you are carrying out your study, you don't use a theory, but you determine the theory from what you've collected inductively. Whatever evidence you've collected from the data, then you use it inductively to come up with a theory. So all these things, colleagues, they're quite exciting. They sound big, but they're quite exciting. They're good. When you start getting into them, you understand them and you get to enjoy yourself. For research can be frustrating, but also it is enjoyable. And like I said, in terms of mixed methods analysis, you are integrating both quantitative and qualitative findings to enhance the understanding. Why do we have a 10% pass rate at a very good university? Now you have that statistics of 10%, you've carried it out, and now you get people or the students to explain the frustrations, the experiences that are coming in, you're analyzing. It's important. Again, colleagues, the issue of validity and reliability cannot be overemphasized. When you look at validity, what is the accuracy of the measurement that you have taken? Is the research truly measuring what it intends to measure from the word go? Are you looking at the problem that you've brought in, that you're looking at the gap that you're looking at? Is it measured? Is it a true measure of that problem? So, again, in there you have your construct validity, internal validity. What is the data that you've collected? How valid is it? You have external validity. Can it be used outside there? That same data. Can it be used out there? Can it be comparable to other studies? It's important. Reliability concerns the consistency of the measure. How consistent is being the measure on the data that you used? Can the same results be obtained under consistent conditions? If you carried out the HIV issues study in Zimbabwe, in one province, can it be applied to another province with the same similar settings? That kind of thing. So for that, tests and retests of reliability when data is now being, when you're working with the data, those must be carried out to find if there's internal consistency. Always when you're having an exam, these questions they always come out. How did you test your data? You must understand, you must test the data. How valid is it? How reliable is it? Again, I've been speaking to colleagues about subjects that you go out there to question and get data from. They need to be fully informed of what you are doing. Your research that you're carrying out, you must be open to them. There is what is called informed consent, which is important. Confidentiality as well. You need to protect the privacy of those participants. And that data, you must secure it. At least I think for 5 years minimum. If you go there to collect data and maybe you're my student, I will say I want to see the data that you collected, and then maybe you start saying, no, the computer crashed, it was stolen, and then it means there's a question mark. You have problems, and increasing that a lot of supervisors now, when it comes to the issue of data, they start with that. I want to see the data that you collected. So it's a very, very important area, colleagues. Never ever underestimate it. Protect the privacy and store the data securely. You also need to minimize harm. You should avoid any physical or psychological harm to participants. If you are carrying a research on someone, or maybe the people, ladies of the night, the prostitutes, you must be sensitive how you ask them. Don't harass them, protect them as well. It's important. The limitations, I'm just about to finish now, Chair. I think I have 2 minutes sidestep. My apologies. There are also issues or limitations in methodology. You as a researcher, there's always potential bias. You need to take note of that because it can affect your data collection. Earlier on, you heard about when Dr. Nzovwa was speaking about you, maybe you are investigating in the area, maybe it's where you work and you're overexcited, you're emotional, it can affect your bias. And also generalizability. You also find out that you are addressing limitations, that you've got the ability also to generalize findings to a larger population. So it's important to take note of that. And also the data interpretation, like I mentioned. You should recognize how subjective nature of qualitative analysis affects potential for misinterpretation. You must be very aware of that. So in summary, Chair, the robust methodology is very crucial for research. You need integrity in research. So as a researcher, one must understand whatever various methodologies that are there, the designs, the sampling techniques, how you analyze the data. It's important. As a researcher, you must effectively address your research questions. If your methodology is not addressing your research questions, then there is no research. That research can be collapsed. So what is the way forward, colleagues? Always emphasize on the importance of continuous improvement. That is, you as a researcher, this issue of continuous improvement that must always be in your mind. Things are always changing, evolving. I think last week, Professor Sumui was sharing something on the platform where he was applying methodology and issues to do with research, in an interesting manner to how Spain won against Argentina in the final. So it was very important. It just gave me, a window into how continuous improvement is needed. So colleagues, let's read. Like I said, let's get training on softwares, because these are your go-to tools to handle your data. You need to be competent as a researcher. You must know how to do SPSS, how to handle data in NVivo, using NVivo, your qualitative data. And there are so many tools that you can use. So you need to know your data analysis techniques. Chair, that ends my presentation. I thank you for the time.
Thanks so much, Dr. Adbeza Lole. Shall we actually grab for him? Quite insightful. And I hope we appreciate you, and we appreciate your wisdom. And we are learning, and we are actually following you from behind. Eye-catching points, of course, has an impact on the entire methodology. And what was eye-catching was when you said that the methodology gives a structure. It gives a structure of the study. The methodology itself underpins the bigger question, which is the why. Why are you conducting the research? Why are you conducting the research? Then what are you going to do? When you come to me, the method is of the how. I mean the what and the how. Those are bigger questions which have to be answered. And he dived into the philosophical underpinning and how important they are. Essentially, it was more like a building of the Saunders research manual. And what is the curriculum, and with remembering the fellow participants and our facilitators, is that they are emphasizing from the first speaker, that is Dr. Nzovwa. She spoke about the Holy Trinity. When we're looking at the aim, looking at the objectives, the questions, she talks about the golden thread and the Holy Trinity, which is similar to the Holy Trinity. This one was carried forward. He has also repeated to say, you also carry the same in the methodology. Because again, the question that you frame, the object, also mirror. They also help you actually to come up with the philosophical paradigm underpinning that you actually are set to form, which will actually spell out literally all the facets of the nitty-gritty that you will see, coining or sharpening a rigorous methodology. I will not waste much time. We thank you. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call upon Mr. Malambo. Mr. Malambo is a candidate, a PhD candidate at Mwanza, graduate school of business, just like me, who is facilitating. And we are actually learning from those who are ahead of us, so that at the end of the day, we clear whatever we are doing and join them and bring to the civic table the board of knowledge. Mr. Malambo, if you're on standby, you can actually bring your slide and begin your presentation.
Thank you so much. Good evening or afternoon. I'm sure you're able to see my presentation. So how you can present your research in a successful manner. Before I can even enter into this presentation, I know that I have many people here who are present. Some PhD students, some graduates already as PhD graduates, others are masters who already graduated, others are starting their journey, others are yet to present, others have already presented for their research. So maybe a small journey for you, because we are all at different stages with research. So the first thing is that you will be required to present your research topic, your research problem, your research presentations, a 10-page presentation that you'll be taught to present. Then after you've presented, you'll be assigned a supervisor, which some of you already have supervisors. So before you are even assigned a supervisor, when you're presenting, you receive a lot of criticism. That is the nature of research. These are social sciences. A coin has about 2 sides, they say. But for me, I think it has about 4 or 6 sides. There is that round side, the other corner of a coin, then there's a flat and the flat side. So it has about 4 to 6 sides as a coin. So as you present your research, people will, the supervisors, the lecturers, the doctors, they will look at your problem from different angles. So some of you will be told there is no research problem. Some of you will be told there is no topic. Some of you, they'll say all sorts of things, but you should be of good courage and have the confidence. When they ask you a question where you don't know, tell them to guide you. Where you know, get invested also into the research topic, the research problem. Know what you are trying to talk about. Because if they say there's no this, you tell them, but I'm looking at it from this angle. Then they'll say, okay, maybe what you're looking at is this. And also be open to be corrected. You cannot always want to show that you are right. And so, having that said, depending on what stage of research you are, then you, after presentation, you'll be assigned a supervisor. So when you are assigned a supervisor, things can change. Your research objectives can change. Everything can change about your research. Be able to learn, accept to changes. Because what you might have been looking at a different angle, the other person or the one who's guiding you might be looking at it at a different angle. So it's not always that, no, me, I was born to study about this, or I just came to the university to study about this. Be learned and learnable, one who can be corrected and change. And you receive a lot of criticism from your supervisor, because what most students do is that they will just get the research itself, topic, everything, paste it on me, AI or ChatGPT, then they'll get everything and give the supervisor. But it's and the supervisors are there. They know also to say this is what students do, so they want to make sure that they correct you so that you do the right thing. So sometimes it's a tedious thing, it's tiresome thing, but you should always do what? Continue doing the very best. So how do we share the presentation? And as I present, I will tackle also on the part of research itself. Okay. Before I enter into this presentation, before I forget. So after you assign the supervisor, it is going forth and backward. They'll tell you put is here, not there. Why are you putting this? They will ask you to align so that you make sure that your research is okay. Then once your supervisor approves the work, says now you can apply for ethical clearance, you need to obtain the forms from DRGS, the School of Law, those of you that are from the University of Zambia. You collect those forms for ethical clearance, you fill those forms, you put the summary, you put your address, you put all those things that are there in the forms. Then you also put some of the parts of the research in those forms. Once you fill those forms, you print out those forms, or before you print out those forms, you can ask your supervisor to sign if they are far away. But if you can meet physically, you print those forms, they sign. You sign also. Then after signing those forms, you take them to Graduate School of Business, to the director there to sign. Once the director signs, you carry your documents. You pay ethical clearance fee. It's either 500 ordinary, express at 1,000. the fees might be different for those who are studying PhD. Then after you pay those, it's part of the research process. After you pay, you attach you take the receipt to the same DRGS. They will write for you a receipt. Then you get a copy. You attach it on your papers. You submit 4 copies of all the research together with your CV. They might even ask the CV for your supervisor. Then after you submit 4 copies, they'll give you 1 back. Then you start waiting for approval. Once they approve, then you can start collecting data. Then after collecting data, you can analyze the data, write the report, do the presentation, and wait for you to be coached to do the presentation. Then after you've done your presentation, it's not the end, you'll be criticized again. And after presentation, they will tell you these results, maybe they are seeing, maybe you just sat down, you are just writing them down. Maybe you should provide some proof of how you collected the data, or where is the sheet where you used to collect the data. And so that's why Dr. Matipeza Lole said that falsification is very bad in research. You need to show, really, I collected, this is the data which I collected. And not where you just sit and your family members and then you start asking each other questions and then start filling them up. But you need to collect data from the actual individuals where you're supposed to collect data. So that is the research process. I thought to share what is expected of you and what you need to do. And we also help with that in case if you need any help with that. And so how do you present your research? So you can share your screen. It can be based on a tab, where you just want to show the tab from the internet or from the web. It can be a window. So a window, it can be you want to share maybe a document which is not on the tab, or it can be the entire screen, which I'm sharing right now. And for you who really doing research when you're presenting, it's advisable you use the entire screen, because if you don't use the entire screen, you might be delaying the process and they might say that you're not doing the right thing. I think I know about 2 people or 3 people who, including this same stage, people that are presenting right now, that were chased because they were failing to do what? To present the screen. It's a simple thing to do, but sometimes we tend to be anxious and then we forget. So the first thing that you need to do when you what you can see on your Google, you can see this one here. Right now, what you are seeing me, I'm sharing, but in as much as you are seeing that I'm sharing, there is this. There are these parts which you are seeing also from your end. So the first thing that you need to click when you want to share, you need to come here on this box. That is the first step. So you come on this, when you click here, you want to share. So it will show you to say share the screen. So before you can even share the screen, what you need to do is you need to open your slides, the ones that you want to present. So you open them. Then after opening them, you need to ensure that your audio is enabled. You'll be able to hear what people are presenting. If they are telling you to use a video, you switch on your video. Then you click on your presentation. After opening up your presentation, then you come to this Google Meet. So when you click here, where I was telling you that you click here on presentation, what it will bring is, so this is the first step when you click here, number 1. Number 2, it will bring this. So when it brings this, so you can choose to just use a Microsoft Word tab. So this is already which is on the internet, or a window. So if it's a window, if you click on the window, it will bring, maybe you want to share just a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, just a window, part of a window that you want to share, or the entire screen. So this is the entire screen. So this is the number 2, so you depending on what you want to share. So you click on the entire screen for those of you that you want you present. So when you click on the entire screen, this part changes because it is a little bit blur, but when you click it becomes more lighter. So this part. So when it comes there, you click there, which is number 3. So after clicking there, then this button will show that share. So you share the screen. So after sharing the screen, then because it's entire screen, then everything on the screen that you're doing will be showing. Then when you open your tab, because also it's important that when you open the PowerPoint presentation, you need to show in the presentation mode. So for the presentation mode, you need to, they tell you to always put in presentation mode. So for you to put in presentation mode, you can either click here on this aspect, then it will just go on the presentation mode. Or alternatively, you can click here. Then you'll be presenting. And hope the processes are clear. So number 1, you click here, share, where it says share screen. Then after that, you come on entire screen. After clicking on entire screen, you come here, it will be clear on number 3. After you click there, then you come on share. So after you're sharing, in mind you already opened your presentation. Then you come to your presentation. So on your presentation, you click here or here, you double click. Then you put it on presentation mode. As easy as that. Because someone last week, they were failing also to put on presentation mode, and they were asked to say, come back when you're ready to present, you're not ready to present. And these are some of the things that are easy to do, but sometimes we become so anxious, and it's very important you try them before you can even, before the day of presentation, so that it's clear from your end. Then the blueprint of a successful presentation. So on this part, I'll also talk a bit about some parts of research, because we've learned a lot from the 2 doctors who presented. So when you open your research, you have the outline of the research. So the outline of the research, you spend 0 to 1 minute, because you're not explaining anything. You are given few minutes to present. We're talking about research presentation. So you are given 10 minutes to present. So in those 10 minutes, you can't outline every part of the outline. You just need to say, this is the outline of my presentation, be it a defense, be it a proposal. Then you spend 10% of your time on the introduction. So when talking about the introduction, you are introducing what you'll be talking about. Then you also, in the same introduction, you also talk about the background of your study. So background of the study, you are giving some history of the background of the study. So you are even showing the gaps that are there. You are not reading your PowerPoint word by word. And after the introduction, background of study, you come to the research problem, which has already been explained. After research problem, you come to the research objectives. After research problem, you come to the aim, then research objectives questions. Then you come to the significance of a study. So the significance of a study, you are not wasting much time to read word for word. The significance of a study, it must talk to you about 3 things. Number 1, you are adding to the body of knowledge. So you just explain in a statement how your study will add to the body of knowledge, or you might even use words like it may add to the body of knowledge, and like it will. And then you come to the policymakers. So it might help the policymakers to formulate policies. So any study that you're carrying out should be able to help the policymakers. Then the last one is to the industry, the practitioners themselves. How is it going to help? So it might help maybe the marketeers, it might help the bankers, and so forth and the like. And after that, you come to the theoretical framework. So the theoretical framework, you are talking about the theories that guide your research and how they apply to your study, because we have different types of theories. For example, we have the human resource based theory. We have the stakeholder theory. So based on your research, if it's a stakeholder theory, you're saying that all stakeholders must be included in the sharing of the cake and the like. When you're making a decision, all the stakeholders that will be affected by that decision must be included. So if you're carrying out a study on street vending, so you're looking at who are the stakeholders and how does it apply: the marketeers, those guys that stand in the streets, the bus drivers, all the people that are affected by street vending. Those are the stakeholders. But you're saying there's a theory, some old theory that they wrote some years back, and how does it apply to your study? Then from there you come to the conceptual framework. So in the conceptual framework, you're talking about the concepts, the variables. How does this variable depend on this variable? So you explain, so we have the independent variable, we have the dependent variables, and we have the mediating variables, how these variables connect. So you're saying if for example the same case study of street vending, so if we say no, we don't have street vending, so let's say there's street vending as a variable. So what are the variables that this street vending depends on? So maybe markets, cleanliness, congestion, safety. So we're saying if we don't have congestion, there are markets where people are located, there's what and those things and the like, then street vending will not be there. People will be operating on the markets and the like, and so forth and the like. But if street vending continues, maybe there will continue to be safety, there will continue to be dirty, cholera, and the like, just as an example. Or if you're talking about job satisfaction, so if you're saying if in a company they pay well, if there's work-life balance, if there's good organizational culture, so these will lead to job satisfaction, meaning job satisfaction depends on these variables. And after that, you come to the literature review. And there's a scope also. So the scope is what are you going to cover, the delimitation of your study, that you just focus on street vending, you will not focus on other things. That is your scope. And where exactly are you going to? Now, I'll be in Kanyama. Another person did this study, but they did it in the entire Lusaka, but me, I want to just focus on Kanyama. Maybe I want to focus in Mongo. This study was done in America, but I want to see what is applied here in Mongo compared with what was happening. So you have to choose a niche where you're going to do your study. And then you have definition of the key terms. So you define the key terms. You can cite other scholars. There must be 5 or so. Then after that, you come to the literature review matrix. So a literature review matrix, it's a table where you have scholars, the region where that study was, where was that study was done. Was it at the global level? Was it at Africa level? Was it at Zambia level? Then what did they found? What are the methods that they used? Then at the end, you're bringing up the gap. So these are the gaps that are there. So on the literature review matrix, you pick 2 or 3 scholars. Because you are the owner of the research, you already know the data. So you're not reading word by word. You're saying there was a study which was done by Malambo 2025. They focused on ABCD. They found this was the method. This is what the method they used, qualitative study. What is the gap? The gap is that they only focused on qualitative study, and this study was only maybe in Lusaka. So you want to fill that gap on the literature. Then after that, you come to the methodology, which was already explained. So that's how you present in 10 minutes. And so make sure when you are presenting, you don't read word for word, you are presenting. For example, this first line here, it says every slide title should be complete sentence that states your point, not just a topic. So, as you are presenting, you are saying that a title should be a complete sentence. It's okay, it's a complete, because this is what this statement is talking about. Or you are saying it's important not just to have a topic labels, but every title should be a complete what? Sentence. You are presenting, you are not reading. So you can even show graphs to show that you show numbers. These things, they've already been talked about. Then you should at least spend maybe a minute on each slide, and also avoid the reading, because if you're reading, people might not follow through. They will chase you for reading if you're reading. So avoid also infinite mirrors where you are sharing your screen. There are a lot of mirrors on your screen. Enable not to disturb. You are presenting, then some notifications are coming, they're disturbing people. People are sending things and so forth and like. So you close the background of the apps. So you need to run through your desk. So you need to reverse in slideshow mode, so at which I already explained. You test the audio, your speaker, before you can even engage. So you prepare, you can even put some side notes on the side. But what is important is that if you can have the side notes in your head, because you become part of the research process, even better. So I think my conclusions is that you need to end by restating the key findings or clear call to action. Don't leave confusion. So there's ambiguity there, but I've used the word confusion. So even if when you're presenting, try to interchange the words so that you don't seem as if you're reading. For example, this says click stop sharing. So I can say end your slides after delivering your final takeaway. I've even left memorable there because you've already gotten the point. I think I end here. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Malambo, a PhD candidate, and even our doctors already they are weighing us to say these people they are preparing to become doctors. In their shaping as well. So the take home points are from Mr. Malambo, PhD candidate at the University of Zambia, Graduate School of Business. Is that he began by looking at the research proposal, how we deliver the research proposal. Essentially, we're supposed to develop a 20-page document which we are supposed to submit to our school. Then we have to make the PowerPoint presentation. Then he was now running us through to say, normally when students come, they come with a fixed mind to say, this is my study topic. And even the elder doctor made mention that there are changes that actually occur. You start with actually the problem, the setting of the problem. Then the topic actually comes in late, because that is a broader thing which actually comes to feed into the research one, the research problem. So here he was now looking at the mind that we normally have when we come to the research proposal, because what we know is that what we get is the best, but where we come there now, meaning we are being reshaped. In other words, they say either you swim or you sink. So they either say this topic is researchable or this topic is not researchable. So you have to just find why you think it's researchable. And there are some probing questions as to whether maybe this, they will ask me, this a societal problem or is it a research problem? So those are killer questions. Is it a societal problem? Is it a research problem? So there now, the take-out points are that what you don't know, you are there for guidance. You say guidance, that's why they say when you are appearing before them, even when you are citing whatever you are doing, you are riding on the shoulders of what they chance. That is what the research is actually anchored on. So you are there, what you don't know, just say, here, guide me, what should I do? Be guided to setting what you are saying, the best methodology maybe can be this. Maybe for self-underpinning can be this. So there we go for guidance to present what we know, to defend it and what we feel, what we know, that it is okay. But again, we are there now to open a match. At the end of the day, we learn now from our people who have challenged this road before us, and so to be able to ride on the shoulders of what on the giants' shoulders. Then he ran it through also, eventually ran it through the whole process. He looked at the aspect of, so here I was asking personally the flexibility aspect, where you are supposed to be flexible, and even when you are presenting, you should know you should have the knowledge of what you are presenting about. You may have so many slides, they may say 15, they can even be 20 or so. But if you understand your topic, you have a slide, you lift a slide, you face the audience, you actually offload the points without reading. You can even paraphrase. You understand. It's like they're asking about your name, they're asking about virtually what you know about yourself. You can't start reading. So they wanted to bring to the civic table that confidence and the knowledge that indeed you are owning the document. And he also led us through to the time when we are wanted the supervisor after going through. You are given and they give points. Like when I was present, they give their points. You have to have a paper. You write points where they say work on this, work on this, work on this. So you work on those or address those issues that they have answered on. Then the supervisor, they have the principal supervisor, you have the co-supervisor. They will start running you through now. They will start checking now, aligning the document properly. Start this one. That's why even the topic keeps on changing, and which is actually even at the last minute of defending the topic can actually be adjusted. So what is needed is not to have a fixed mind, but to be open to actually divergence and to assimilate more and to learn more. Without wasting much of time, he also spoke to the aspect of sharing. Sharing fellow scholars is quite important at PhD level, even at master's level. They expect us to have these basic skills. And there was one who was sweating. Even the internet where I supposed to be, if you're the internet, it's supposed to be up to, supposed to be good internet, it's supposed to be good. And when you are sharing, you should not waste much time. Start struggling, It is something that you should have practiced before. Because if you come to present, you're already annoying the panelists when you are failing to share. You're making them already upset before you start presenting, meaning you're making them not to start now doubting even your competence. So these are things that you have to practice and share it. Practice with your peers so that you are competent to see what was actually explaining about. It may look simple, but I've seen people sweating seriously. Into the aspect of the theory, the theoretical and conceptual underpinning on the theories. You don't just pick a theory. Mr. Malambo made mention that you pick only a theory that is relevant to your study. And how we to actually contribute actually because want to use that theory to anchor your study. That one is anchoring what you study, and it should actually be in tandem with your topic. You can just pick any theory for the sake of picking it. Otherwise, you have challenges. Your theory should be. You're not inventing a theory. There are theories that have already been developed by our founding scholars. So we are riding on the giants of what? On the shoulders of giants. We are just advancing that theory to our studies. Then we now come to the conceptual that is spoke to, which now operationalizes now the theories. Or are we talking about having a model? So now the independent variable now, you know that they feed into the into the dependent variable, and in between there they were what we call the more directing variables, those that influence the independent variable to give birth now to the what, to the dependent variables. There are others called the moderating variables, intervening variables, also mitigating factors. So all those have similar properties. Then what is worth mentioning before, as I start preparing to call upon the next speaker, is that the independent variables come again to mirror the independent variables. They come to mirror objectives again. You can see when the first speaker started speaking, it's actually objectives that they told from the beginning of your study to the end. Even when you'll be doing data interpretation, which was done by Dr. Lole, he was saying when you're doing data analysis, when you are writing the conclusion, everything, if you say, if you link it to objective one, the conclusion should be in line with objective one. If you really answered, if you satisfied objective one, so they are all related throughout. We hear from Professor Bench, we talk about literature, this literature, what else we talk about. You are going to see how again, how it is in the objectives are independent, but how they become things again, and how they are mirrored their things so that your presentation with the literature review is coherent. There is coherence and fluence in your presentation. A clear demonstrating that you are actually a PhD student. If you are talking about this thing, we expect literature to flow in that direction, not to mix them up, but to flow in that direction. And according to the thing which is actually mirroring again the objective, and it's coming to the golden threads, coming to the Holy Trinity. I will not go through each one what he said more. He ran through all that, and he spoke about the aspect of now the ethical clearance, which we also spoken to earlier. Those are when Dr. Lole was actually unpacking the methodology. Those are important, we have to follow them, and even the aspect of getting clearance before we can actually embark on correcting data. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to lazy Professor Bupe. Professor Bupe, I don't know if I told she's in. I remember when I presented, I was the first presenter being when we were defending our proposals. Wow, I presented for 15 minutes, then I was made to stand for the next 15 minutes receiving questions from right, left, and center. It was quite interesting. So to understand whether you really own what you are presenting. Mr. Malambo, is Professor Bupe in?
Yes, she joined sometime back.
Okay. Professor Bupe, you are welcome to webinar. There are area speakers that actually spoke before you. We had Dr. Nzovwa, who actually gave a presentation the first session. It was actually followed by Dr. Lole, and then we had Mr. Malambo, your PhD student in making, a PhD candidate in making, or your PhD, your doctor in making, that you are actually Professor, just like the one who is actually speaking. Professor, maybe just greet the participants who have been waiting. We said she will join us later, after which we shall call upon now to deliver your presentation. Yes, Professor.
No, thank you so much for having me in this presentation, the webinar. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Professor is just a professor of few words, but when you start working, that's when I understand it's a lost word. She has learned. She displays impeccable characteristics coupled with high state degree. Professor, at this junction now I call upon to give you a presentation. When you are done, that's when now we shall open the Q&A for virtual for the presentation that are done. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you so much. Let me quickly share my slides. So my presentation this evening is focusing on making money using research. That's the topic I was given to present on. So when I was given this topic to present on, I was actually happy that I have been given the opportunity to discuss the issue of money, because I believe most students would think that research is just tiresome and there's no money involved. You can actually make money using research. And I'll speak to my slide and I'll share some of my experience that I've had over the years in terms of how research can actually be a business, or as we say, passive income for those that want to venture into it. Your journey in research, for most of you who are logged in this webinar, you might be master's students and you might be PhD students. You're going to become an expert in your field on the topic on which you are researching on. And what this means is that you are focusing on an area where you are going to become an expert. And that area is the one which you can then use to do many other things that I'll present in terms of how the research can then be translated into some sort of income. When we look at this, we need to understand that we are taking your area of expertise into that income, and we would want to see that evidence. And when you do it, you want to do it in an ethical manner. Whenever we talk about research, you have to be able to do it ethically. That's why I just said a few lines from Mr. Mtale, where he mentioned that research in Mwanza, you have to go through the ethical clearance process because it has to be done ethically. In as much as you are going to want to use research to make an income, it has to be done ethically. It earns income when it solves a valuable problem. There has to be value in the problem. There has to be a problem that you are solving. I know most of I've come across a lot of students who go in that route, but to be honest, sometimes when they go into that route of wanting to help others, there's an element of not really understanding how this can be done ethically and honestly. So when you begin to think of research in terms of how it can then be translated into an income or a business, you have to understand which area am I going to focus on, what problem am I going to focus on which people are willing to pay. We don't necessarily have to think of research in terms of just supervising, because sometimes we narrow down ourselves to say, we narrow the idea down to say, I can only make money if I supervise a student, if I write a dissertation for a student, which is unethical. I was just reading the guidelines and policy on plagiarism in Mwanza. You can actually be expelled if you have found out that someone did writing for you. That is unethical. So we would want to take you through this presentation knowing that you have to do it ethically. You have to be involved, you have to own the research, and as you own the research, you become an expert, and then you can then be able to deliver to the different clients that you want to help. If you go through the process of research, it then helps you to then become an expert and then be able to help others. But if you don't go through that process, how are you then going to help others? So research alone, in terms of a thesis, a dissertation, or a data set, articles, and all that, it creates knowledge. That's what research does. So as you are doing your thesis, as you are writing your article, as you are writing your dissertation, you are creating that knowledge. And especially if you are now specializing in that field in which you're conducting your your research in or your program in which you are enrolled. What this research does is that it is explaining what is happening. If you've done a literature review, if you read other people's thesis, you read other people's work, it is explaining what is happening. You are able to identify the causes and the patterns, and then you are able to provide credible evidence. That's what your dissertation will do. That's what your article is going to portray. That's what the different databases that we go to will actually give us in terms of that information. So normally we do it because we want to get our degree and we pay. But as we are doing that, we are becoming an expert. But then how do we convert this research into value? How does the income appear? How does it appear? It appears when you as a researcher who has been involved in your work has that knowledge. And that knowledge that you have, you then decide to improve a solution, to improve a system, to improve an operation, or to solve a problem for someone. Or when that knowledge is then translated into an innovation, because sometimes when we do research, we can then identify that there's an innovation here, which we can then convert into an idea, which we can then convert into a product or into a service. We can then look at that knowledge that you have concluded in your conclusion and say, oh, these findings can actually be used to reduce risk. So you have to convert that knowledge into value. And when you look at the area in which you are researching and the works that you have done over time, you have been writing for a specific audience. If I'm focusing on circular supply chains, I know the people that I'm going to be dealing with and the specific sectors. There are so many sectors and all the sectors are actually addressing circular supply because it's a circular economy that we want. But I might be an expert maybe in the manufacturing sector. I might not be an expert in the mining sector. I might not really understand. I might not really be so much vested into the agriculture sector. So you have to have a niche. You have to have a niche. You have to have an identity in terms of how are people going to say you are valued because of the knowledge that you have. You can't be everything. You can't be all over. So you have to be able to define who the user will be and the problem that you are addressing based on the knowledge and the expertise that you have had, so that when you are now looking at that problem, when you are interacting with those who are going to come to you and consult, you'll be able to package a clear solution. It will be easy for you to price and deliver a solution professionally. And we need to remember that when we are in industry, before I even go in terms of the specific ways in which you can convert research into money. In industry, when we talk about research, there are rates that we work with. So you also have to be knowledgeable in terms of how do I price for a dissertation, how do I price for consultants, what is my rate based on my qualifications, so that you are within the market, you're not outside the market, or you're not undervaluing yourself and you're not so expensive. So you have to be able to understand the pricing, and then you can then be able to deliver professionally. So there are 8 practical ways researchers can generate income. And in fact, I've just decided to present 8 practical ways in the 30 minutes time that I've been given. We can do consultancy, where we solve organizational problems. Consultancy and research are a bit different. That's the reason why sometimes you see you are making a presentation and they're telling you that this is consultants, this is not research, especially for PhD students. I was just taking through my students in literature reviewing, and I was telling them that there are different types of literature review. There's the scoping literature, there's the rapid literature, which you can use for consultants. There's also the narrative literature, there's the systematic literature review, which goes deeper and beyond what the scoping literature can do, and we find that we can use that under consulting. We are going to a company and we are going specifically to address the problem that they are facing. That's the reason why they are consulting you, because you have the knowledge which you can translate into value and solve problems for them. You can have a contract research where you conduct commission studies, and you do those studies where you go and you do a specific research in a specific sector. It's a commission study, it's being funded by the funders. You can get a grant. There are so many grants out there. If you are qualified and you are able to write a proposal, you can get a grant. and impact problems. There are so many grants that have been advertised that are of that can create great impact in Africa, can solve different problems. And moreover, when we look at our interactions within the southern region, we find that a lot of, comparing the southern region and the western region in terms of Africa, we find that we have so much of our colleagues in the southern region participating so much in this grant writing compared to what we do in Zambia. Because maybe we are just thinking that we can only supervise, but there are grants out there and we need to learn how to write grants, and grants are of different types. Right now, we are running a program under the Directorate of Research and Development on grant writing, and there's a lot of grants that you can expose yourself to and get a grant. They've got their own specific requirements, but you can apply for that because you already have the value. You can train, visualize and interpret data. We're living in a world of big data. Companies have got a lot of data. Depending on the skills that you have developed over the years as you are doing your research and analyzing data, that's why it's important for you when you get your data and you're analyzing it. They are learning skills. During the process of conducting research, it's a point at which you gain specific skills which you can then use and translate them into value and get an income. So for those that have done trend analysis, who are working with historical data, they can use different softwares to be able to analyze and give and interpret data for an organization. We have so much data that we are just sitting with. For example, I'm going to a company. We always enter companies and the security guard is always recording our names, our addresses, our NRC, and all that. We go to a hospital, there's this required. We go there, there's this required. Where is that information? Of what use is that information? A company has so much product returns. They are returning products. A company needs to make an analysis and understand what type of problems are they facing and what type of equipment are they returning and how many were they in the month. How much are we losing? So that information is recorded in books, but nobody interprets it. Especially one of the things that I've discovered is that with the courier business, which is coming up in Zambia, we have got those who are still using the manual system, but they don't even understand how, and they keep having the same problems because the data that they have is never analyzed. So for those who have gained knowledge, they can use that publication, creating books, guides. I'll speak to this and intellectual property and partnerships. So under consultants and advisors, you can offer diagnosis, recommendation and interpretation of support. This is where we talk about policy and strategy development. When you're consulting, because there are different types of consultants, but just to mention that you can do evaluation. For those that have got the skill in terms of monitoring and evaluating, what is it that we have implemented? There has to be a system in terms of how we monitor and evaluate to see whether it's working. So a consultant is able to do that. A consultant should be able to do process improvement. Those who have done operations, project and supply chain, we discuss issues to do with going there and analyzing and looking at the process, using flowcharts and different tools that you can use to solve problems. You can go there and then even technical and feasibility studies, because you have gone through the process of how research can be conducted. So consultants and advisory services can be offered. Contract research, where you deliver a defined study for government, industry, NGO, or development partners. We have so much funding. We have a lot of consultants, companies that are surviving on that are employing and bringing impact in Zambia. On the circular economy, and they're trying to bring together universities, government, industry, small, media. Circular economy practices in Zambia. So this is where we have identified a needs. We are going to look at needs assessments and surveys, baseline and impact studies. Those are just specific kind of researches that you can under contract research. Markets and sector search, evidence reviews and policy reviews. You can do that if you have been given a contract. If you have applied for that contract, there are so many databases that are out there where you can subscribe and have those alerts to give you that there's a call for funding, and you can partner. I'll talk about partnering as we go on. Training as an expert who has been in industry, who has gone through the process in the area in which they were conducting that research, you can convert your methods into short courses, whether as workshops and executive education. Right now, we're talking about a weapon. Just workshops. You can come up in the workshop. Short courses, we have got so many apps online right now, and Zambia is lagging behind. If you go online and you see so many countries, like I am a YouTuber, I listen to a lot of YouTube videos on various things. If you talk about financial inclusion, we talk about Uganda, Kenya, those are giants, South Africa, in terms of podcasts, in terms of using these apps to be able to convert the knowledge into short courses, which the other people will use. So you find that there are so many platforms. It's not just physical, but you can even go online and develop a short course or affiliate with another organization or another app where you can upload and begin to make money from there. Sell or license templates, questionnaires, analytical models, datasets, and toolkits. You can develop a toolkit from your area of expertise. We're talking about environmental, social, and governance. We're talking about those who are in accounting. You can develop a template. You can develop a questionnaire which can be used and sold. Because the questionnaire you can adopt. Knowledge content, you can develop books, practical guides, paid newsletters, video courses, and membership communities. So on the knowledge content, when you develop a book and you are publishing it with Amazon, you are publishing it with these different, you actually get a loyalty. We have got so many journal publishers, and when you are publishing with a journal, and one of them was published a book, and my other book is going into publication next week. The first book, I was paid loyalty. The second book is a lifetime loyalties, because each time the buyers or the readers or someone who is interested buys that book, there's a certain percentage that I'll be getting from that book that I've written. So develop books which you can sell. Even when it comes to articles, the ones who are establishing these journals where we are paying and to have our works published, there are platforms where they are publishing, but they have to understand the field. They have to be able to be approved. They have to be indexed by all these different Google Scholars, Scopus, and all that, and they still make money because we are paying. Even if you don't pay and you publish with a Scopus indexed journal, there will be others that are going to be charged to use your work, so they will still make money. So those are some of the platforms. We are paying a lot of money to journals which have been established in just to go back, which have been established in West Africa. But let's remember to use the UNZA journals, which are free. We have UNZA journals, and we are pushing the agenda to have those journals. Some of them they're up to date, but we have got journals under all the three rates. We have got the humanities, and I'm just trying to also speak to, because these are UNZA students. We have got the humanities and social sciences, research ethics, where you take your proposals for approval, but we have also got the natural and applied science ethics committee, and we have the biomedical ethics committee. So all the disciplines in UNZA are catered for, and we have journals in those. And if you go to our website, you'll be able to see them. Even there, you can still come up with a journal and affiliate. That is where I would want to speak in terms of collaboration. Problem. So when you look at all these training, knowledge, books, articles, and consultancy, you need to be able to package expertise so that buyers immediately understand the offer. But before then, you have to be credible. You have to be able to demonstrate. For PhD students, I'm speaking to you. For young researchers who have just graduated, for master students who have an intention of going into research, it's an interesting journey. But you have to have an area which you're so excited about so much that you can sit and write a 300-page book. In as much in the era of AI. Because people sometimes will just think, okay, I'll write and I'll put it in AI. AI will write for you. AI will not do, it's not 100%. They'll be able to check it in terms of similarity index and plagiarism, and it will be rejected. So you have to have an area where you have interest and begin to research. It can give you enjoyment, satisfaction, because that is what you want. it can give you money. But you have to create value for yourself. How do you create value for yourself? For PhD students, how do you create value for yourself? Creating value for yourself is not just getting the PhD degree and it ends there. That's when the real journey starts, and that is when you can translate your value into money. If you remain with the degree and you're not doing research, you're not reading, you're not writing, your value will not be displayed and you will not be able to get funding. You will not be able to get a grant because they are looking for those who have got an area where they will tell them what are the last 5 publications that you have made this year so that we can see how they align to this scope. So if you're not writing, you're not reading, you're not writing book chapters, you're not writing articles, you're not writing books, it becomes difficult for you to get funding if you want to go that route. For you to get consultants, they also want to see how much work you have done. Of course, you can start even without charging to create a database of people that you would say, I have worked for this, but you have to be able to continuously update yourself with the latest information, with the latest knowledge. That way you can then package expertise so that buyers immediately understand because you have created the value. Even when they come to you and they go to your profile, for those who are, everybody who is in here, they are in here because they're interested in research. When we go to your profile, your Science Direct, your Science Direct, we go to your Scopus, Web of Science, Google Scholar, ResearchGate, and Medismatic Scholar, we are able to see this is John, these are the publications, he has been publishing in this, and there's got so much of the publication. We'll trust this person to be able to address this difficult problem. And even when they cost, then be able to say, oh, I can charge $500 per hour. They'll give you that money because you have created value for yourself. So you have to start by set the costly problem your research helps. That is by creating value for yourself. Even when they approach you, you will be able to speak and explain what is it that I've done over the years. Describe the service, the product, or decision support you can provide because you have created that profile for yourself. Show publications, methods, case examples, credentials, and results. Evidence is what will give you more clients. So all this we are doing in the webinar, taking you this is a sort of creating value and giving you an idea in terms of the roadmap and how to get there. You have to specify the output, timeline, price basis, and the next step. That is when they have given you, or when you are writing your budget, or when you are writing your scope, when you are now giving your clients if they have given you that project. But value is very important. A simple client journey turns visibility into paid work. So here we are saying be visible. If you create that value, you go through the journey, and please make sure that for those who are in masters and they have got an interest of taking this route in terms of passive income or creating a career, they are PhD students that want to grow. Don't focus yourself on publishing in Scopus that will not read your work. They will ask you to pay $50, they will ask you to pay $100, and tomorrow the publication is out. Build yourself. Be in a position to say, I published in a Scopus journal and I saw the reviews, I saw the comments, I went through the journey, and this journey is teaching me in terms of how I can impact another person because I've gone through the process of rigor of going through a publication that is credible and that considers ethics and also takes plagiarism seriously. So that journey and how do you create your visibility, share useful insights through your talks. You can, right now we have got so many platforms. Myself, I've got a LinkedIn, I'm sure all of you have got LinkedIn. I have got a YouTube video where I'm posting videos on research and I'll be sharing with you soon. It's coming up. I've got a weekly newspaper that I write for to provide awareness. I've got a Facebook page where I post things on circular economy. When you are creating that visibility, you're creating your visibility. The money might not come now, but there are people that are seeing you. So get registered to ResearchGate, get registered to Google Scholar, be on Scopus, be on Web of Science. With one publication, be there. See how people will follow your work and they will cite it because they're interested in the findings. You're creating visibility. There are so many professional networks that we can be visible to. So it starts from there. Ask questions, define problems, and agree on the outcome before proposing the work. As you begin your journey and you're beginning the journey of discovering and discussing, and even when you get to a point where you have been visible, now you've been given an offer, you can ask questions, you can define. There are platforms like ResearchGate where we can even have discourse, we can discuss, we can share ideas. Build trust, use a clear scope, milestones as you make that proposal in terms of the consultancy work. Don't be greedy, don't focus so much on the money. When you're just starting, focus so much on building your profile. Ethical safeguards. Even when the client wants you to use shortcuts, follow the procedure. If the research or the contract research demands getting ethical clearance, make sure that is done. When the work has been done and you have implemented, you've done a consultancy, remain in contact with those people. Keep your network. You can even make follow-ups. Sustainable research income requires 3 disciplines. That is what we are concerned with. It's not just about hours alone. Value, what outcome does the client gain? Because if they work with you and you have a timeline which you have given them, they are telling you that every Friday we have a call and we want to see what work you have done for us. We are doing a project together. We're doing a consultants together. We have to have check-in calls. 10 hours, they are nowhere. You don't communicate, you don't log in. And these are international funders or clients that you have given you a contract and they have paid you. What outcome does the client gain? They want to see a level of discipline, seriousness. So we are saying it's not just about the price according to the scope, the expertise, complexity, risk, agency, and value. This is how we price. I should have started with that. This is how, while following institutional policies, this is how we are pricing. We also have to understand the ZRA, because sometimes you might get a consultant and you have to be paid through your bank, and you have to have what's this TP, you have to understand how you set up your budget and the VAT and all those, they have to be considered as you are making that proposal and deciding on the rate. You have to go online and check what is the rate, what rate does that funder offer, does it apply here? So we are saying in terms of the pricing according to the scope and the expertise, because if you're a master's, there's a rate, PhD, there's a rate, the complexity and the risk that is involved in that job. But as we look at the pricing, also what value does the client get? What time, people, and resources are required? Please do not work alone. Research, if you are just, it's a huge study or it's a consultant, you can't work alone. You can work with others. Identify people that you can come together and work with and make that possible. Because the majority of the times when you're looking at funding and grants, you find that they will be asking for, you have to be affiliated to an institution. You have to be affiliated. You should have a company that is registered. You're so good and you don't have a company. You can partner with someone who has a company. You're so good and you don't have a university. You can partner with us at Mwanza. I'm the acting director for collaborative research hub for multidisciplinary advancement. We partner with industry, we partner with government on making sure that we collaborate on multidisciplinary research. We link you to the experts within the university and you can conduct consultancy, you can work together on research, you get your money. We have got a way in which we manage research funds. We are ethical because we even have those regs within the university. Who owns the data? PI and final outputs. We have got the intellectual property policy. So even when we are coming together and the funder, usually funders, they also be clear on the intellectual property. And in fact, on the issue of innovation, because we want to identify innovation in every research, so you also want to make sure that, is this innovation in mine? Should I go to PACRA and patent it? Is it going to be Mwanza? So all that is cleared at the point of partnering. Your first 90 days, move from expertise to your first offer. That is, if you take the direction just on the path of implementation, choose one problem, one audience, one service you can deliver confidently. That is what we want. if you have identified, sometimes you just have to, there's so many small and medium enterprises in Zambia who are facing different challenges. I always wonder why students find it very difficult to find a topic, because at masters we're actually applying what we have done in class. So we can go there and ask what problems are they facing. Once you solve a problem for one SME, you become an expert, and then you will be able to tailor your programs, and people are interested in learning. Publish useful insights and contact 10 relevant organizations as partners. We will create a one-page capability statement and sample out and simple pricing basis. That is now when you are now profiling yourself and trying to market yourself, trying to be visible. And even the results that you get from your master, that's why we encourage you to make a paper out of it, but you can also make a policy brief from that. You can also create findings that you can go and share with the newspapers. Some newspapers, they don't even chat because they're looking for people to publish in their newspapers. On so many of the important researches that you are doing, it's just one page, but there's findings that you can share. You put your name and somebody else will reach out to you. Start with one valuable problem. Don't be all over. Don't accept like everything. I'm knowledgeable in every field. You have to know your area. And that, because we are trying to promote multidisciplinary, then you can work with others. So define your buyer in terms of your area of expertise. Who is interested in my services? So you start with one variable problem which you can package. Let's begin those conversations. I've already mentioned that I'm at CREMA, where we will partner with industry, we partner with companies, partner with individuals who have ideas. We see how that can be translated into an MOU and how that can bring value, not only for the investor of Zambia and yourself, but for the nation. So that is how important research is. Thank you very much. I can take some questions.
Thank you so much, Professor Bupe. Very insightful. I think we can give a round of applause virtually. Very insightful, and I thought she was going to come and talk about how to actually professionally craft literature review. And then she came with him. I was going to buy surprise, Professor. But making very interesting. And business. Actually enjoyed the presentation. And fellow participants. This is quite insightful. And as I see, one of the days when people are just getting a PhD, get master's PhD, and he said, I have a PhD. She said that the journey begins after you acquire your PhD. Because you have to become relevant and you have to, your feasibility has to be actually what be seen. And about yourself and how to combat against how to combat research into money. And she talked about various business ventures with the knowledge that we acquired, because you have resolved actually a research problem. And having resolved a research problem, we expect that you are supposed actually to be able to apply that knowledge. And also PhD. It's about PhD methodology. So once you know the instruments of acquired the actual skills, you're able to resolve daily problem. She spoke to consultants and the business, which is happening over 60 participants. Of course, there also are facilitators. Then she talked about the contract research, and this happened where multinational organizations are talking about one bank can give you millions of, they can give you millions of kwacha, this in kwacha. You can talk about dollars, out this research is impactful. You do that, you bring. There is value for money. You get your money and you move on. And even for the corporate, for the ministry, some of us have been conducting. We are writing proposals that we actually bring money in the ministry and in the country. Others actually getting a grant and others can also venture into training. We are being trained here, and she has also wrote about this innovation, is quite important. Data services, and that is also cardinal. She talked about publications, and there was an emphasis of publishing into credible and well-recognized publications, so that when you are done, at least you are visible and recognized to say, yes, this person did this, and able to reference you. Then we're talking about intellectual property. Then we're talking about also the aspect of partnership. But the key word was, yes, others can use AI to write this. AI is just a tool that you can use. We guide you, but again, you have to add the value, not just using AI. You have to go on the development. It's about skills acquisition. And the skills acquisition will make you relevant. You'll be able to conceptualize the relevant thing. Yes, something to understand the process. And then the technical element. What is available and development and interest. So this making money using research is quite insightful. Webinar is quite interesting. But she also spoke to, she also echoed what other facilitators said when they spoke to the aspects of how to write a successful research. So she was now put the eyes on the cake now into business, I guess. They just in the sitting of the one of that and then they are not. But you have to move on. And education is an ongoing process which starts from the womb up to the graveyard. Before you are born, you already learning. When you also keep silence. But this is a gentleman. Will be opening the question and answer sessions. We had four presenters, for first facilitators. We had Dr. Nzovwa, we had Dr. Lole, then Mr. Malambo, PhD, and then we have still Professor Bupe. We have one yes. So there are four. So now we open the floor now. The question can go to virtually anyone that wants to target that question. And you can raise up your hand so that we move sequentially. And so there is order. They are ready to actually answer questions where we need clarifications. They will still pass. I'm not seeing any hand here. Maybe where am I supposed to check here? I'm not seeing the hand here. Are the hands up? Okay, I've seen the hand. Oh yeah, it's Dr. Lole. Yes, Doc. We expect now questions from you.
Mine is just to thank Prof. Prof, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation and the insights. Just maybe to remind you to share the handles, YouTube signature, and the other social handles will be happy to follow you. As we're willing to learn, and we know we're going to learn a lot as we've always been doing. Thank you so much, Prof. And thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will definitely do that.
Thank you so much. I'm seeing the pop-ups here. We need questions, no clarifications. I'm seeing the yes, the feedback, not the interaction here. Okay. not seeing properly. Okay, you can go ahead and ask a question if I can't see you properly. Go ahead and ask a question, a clarification, or a compliment.
Good evening.
Evening, madam.
Okay. I have a question for Dr. Nzovwa and then another one for Mr. Malambo. For Dr. Nzovwa, I would like her to go through the golden thread in research, which she mentioned. I could have missed the detail of it. I just wanted to understand it better. And then for Mr. Malambo, I just want to know, when you're giving us steps on presenting your research, you talked of a waiting period for approval. Would you know how long that period is or how long someone is supposed to wait? Thank you. Hello. Thank you for that question. So on the golden thread, I actually didn't speak on it in detail. I was just highlighting that that's something that should be present in research, in your documents, in your work, the work that you've done. So what this is really, if you've heard even during presentations or anywhere, when someone is talking about there's no coherence in your study. So maybe your title was talking about one thing, and then as you're progressing through your study, you lose that. Maybe you had your title is speaking to your study being qualitative, but then as you are going down to the rest of your study, you start to see elements of quantitative. So this is about coherence. Yeah. So I did not speak on it in full, but the golden thread is really like the connection throughout your study, all the way from your title to the end, your recommendations, everything. There has to be coherence. Someone should be able, when they look at maybe your title, they should be able to tell that this is what you're studying. If they look at your objectives, they should be able to tell that this is, at least these are elements that should be appearing in your title. So it's about there being coherence in your study. That's what the golden thread is. Thanks.
Thank you. Before Mr. Malambo comes in, that's a very good question and quite insightful. Yeah, it is called golden thread or holy trinity. Just called holy trinity in research. Trinity. Some of us came from the Catholic orientation, where we say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So we are looking at how these are marrying each other. We are looking at the aim. We are looking at the objectives. We are looking at the questions. Well, the questions mirror. You have the aim here. You have the objectives, which are stemming from the aim. Then you have got the questions, which are mirroring just the objectives. Then you find that again, those objectives again are mirroring, or whichever the case, the independent variables. When you come again to pick the literature, you discover that again, it has good things there. The literature is actually mirrored there. When the objectives are mirrored in your literature, so that there is coherence in your presentation. What you write is where they're repeating about domestic financing. They'll talk about domestic financing. To come and talk about maybe community, and if you talk about maybe another financing, you just focus on that. So there's that coherence, and then that one rise to now all the way even up methodology when Dr. Lole was actually speaking before. He also ran through that just what just actually has spoken. So it's called the golden thread or the holy thread of research. Is if you change the aim, the objectives have to change, the questions have to change simultaneously. So what if one is affected, definitely it will affect everything. So you have to adjust everything. So there should be coherence in what you have done there. When you say, research questions, email and research objectives, they should actually, they just do just that. And that is what she was actually speaking to. And we have our, in as much as it was thrown to one facilitator here, we have other facilitators here, Professor Bupe, we have Dr. Lole, so they can also come in and help out before Mr. Malambo comes. Before Mr. Malambo comes in with the question that was directed to him. So, Professor Bupe, if you want to add something, you can add something. Dr. Lole, if you want to add something to that question, you can also add something. Thank you.
Chair, I think it has been well explained in terms of what it is. The magic word there is coherence. That in logical alignment, is needed. It ties every part of the study. Just like Dr. Nzovwa said, from start to finish. That's all one can say. I think it's been well answered, and you also elaborated on that, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Then, Mr. Malambo, there was a question that was directed to you.
Okay, for the interest of time, because we are behind the schedule by 1 minute, I'll just go straight to the answer. So for express, it takes 10 working days. Then for ordinary, if you pay for ordinary, it takes a month.
Okay, thank you so much. Any more clarifications, questions? And we don't know if at all our presenters, our facilitators, be able to share the slides. Mr. Malambo will speak to that later. Joyce Wada, yeah, you can come in.
Good evening. I hope you're able to hear me.
You are loud and clear, madam.
Okay. My question goes to Dr. Is it Lole? This is on the paradigms, beliefs, and philosophy. I wanted to find out because, unless I wasn't very clear, but I must have made you say that as you choose to do research, you also have to look at your belief system. So, assuming you have a different belief system and you want to do research in a space where you don't have the same belief system, how do you as a researcher stay true to the research itself and not putting your beliefs, your philosophies, or your ideas in ensuring that your research still brings out what it's supposed to bring and is not clouded by your judgment or your feelings or beliefs? Thank you.
All right, I'll quickly take it, Chair. No, thank you very much for your question. So what it means is you need to align with the problem that you are studying in terms of the philosophy. The key thing is that what you are writing about, the problem that you are writing on, you must understand what the problem is and how to address it philosophically. You need to understand that, because if you don't, then how do you address the problem? That is where I was coming from. But normally, even Prof will tell you, your beliefs, usually when you carry on this, you know exactly where you are. But if that problem does not come into territory of beliefs, at least you should know what it entails to solve that problem, to investigate and solve it. You need to align your philosophy with the problem that you're solving. I don't know if that answers you, but maybe Prof will also come in and address that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Professor. We have another doctor in the house. If you want to add, you can add it. If I bring Mr. Gift Mwewa, what was the question or concern?
I would just say that research, as she mentioned, has to be coherent. Whatever you're doing in research, the moment you identify the usually get translated into a title, or the other way around, where you can have a title and then begin to craft your problem. When you identify that, you also need to bring in issues of reality and your beliefs. So much that when you identify the philosophy that you are going to work with, it is then going to align with everything in your study. That's specific. If you look at the philosophies that are there, they are actually aligned to the specific research approaches. And the whole way until you have analyzed your data, you have identified the type of study that you are going to conduct, how you frame your objectives, how you crafted your problem, how you do the sampling, the techniques that you are going to use, the approach that you are going to use to analyze. It's all aligned to that philosophy and your beliefs. So there has just to be that alignment. It doesn't work in the you can't make different things. So you really need to sit and understand who you are, the problems that you are addressing, where you have addressed the problem, and how does it fit to you and the reality at hand. Then you look at your philosophy. That's basically what I can say. Just simplify the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We have Mr. Gift one and Gift Mama.
Sorry, Chair.
Okay.
Just one thing, because this is something that is usually asked even at presentations. There's a process called reflexivity. I think if I've said it correctly, where that is speaking to the question where you take note of your feelings, your views about something, and then you keep track of how your views may have changed, how you prevented them from affecting you.
You have to accept details, what details your personality from the research, so that the empirical data actually brings forth the actual innovation, the knowledge that you seek to have. Okay. Mr. Gifty, I can see Gifty on the line here. We have been watching. Yes, you can.
Thank you. It's actually female. I'm Gift.
I'm sorry.
My question goes to Dr. Nzovwa concerning the thesis chapter 1 of research proposal. Are we supposed to have both the main objective and the aim? Sorry, I joined in late. I'm not sure if this was explained already.
Okay. So I actually have the guidelines open here. So you're asking if we're supposed to have the aim and the objectives, and the main objective, the aim and the main objective. So the aim, yes, that is needed, but the general objective is what it says here, that it's optional, but you need your specific objectives. I'm reading from the guidelines. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
That is Dr. Panda. She's actually following the subject guidelines. Any more questions, reactions? Engagement. We are already on the shoulders of giants, and they appreciate us also to where they are, and we are following them. So now that's why we are here, so to get it prepared. Okay. It's like the topics are quite interesting, and the presentations were concise. And we are looking at time. We have just, I think, bypassed by, I think, 9 minutes. And Mr. Malambo, I think, will be required now to revert back. Will be required to revert back we are done with this part here. Okay. So, Mr. Malambo, before I call upon you, allow me to call upon Professor Bupe to say to give us some remarks. We shall conclude later say some concluding remarks. Then we shall have Dr. Banda, then we shall have Dr. Lole, in that order. Professor Bupe. Professor Bupe, you're on the...
Oh, I think for me, I would want to commend the organizers of this webinar. This is a job well done. This is what we need to interact and share knowledge and then translate that knowledge into value. So I commend the organizers. I also commend the students that have found time to log in and learn. Learning doesn't end. You don't have to wait for the lecturer to have a class with the lecturer and then you say that I'm learning. Even this is learning. Thank you so much for the opportunity for me to share what I know with others. I wish everyone all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Mr. Banda.
Thank you so much, Chair. Just to echo what Professor has said, thank you very much to the organizers. This is really a good initiative. I can say that platforms like these actually helped me through my journey. And I encourage everyone to please, when you see a link, especially one that is as well organized as this, log in. We have so much reading, so much writing to do. But if you have a moment to plug in your earpiece and then you're listening in, you never know what you pick up and what might influence the work that you're doing. And just thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Doctor. Then we have Dr. Lole.
Thank you, Chair. Just to echo what our CD said, Prof, also my colleague to the Banda, we thank everyone who organized this. Never take these platforms for granted. They're very good platforms to learn. I also learned a lot to such forums. So keep pushing. In GSP is there to support that, I know, 100%. So it's all up to you guys and us. We are always available to assist. Just like you've seen, Prof is here over the weekend just to support. So thank you very much to the organizers and everyone. And Prof, thank you so much. We'll continue following your footsteps.
Thank you so much. And we promise to actually keep on improving and to keep on upgrading ourselves. Mr. Malambo, your vote of thanks before we do the final remarks and then.
Sorry, sir. Sorry, excuse me, sorry.
Okay.
Hello, good evening. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry for interruption. I just want to find out, did Prof give her social handles? Oh, maybe you can send them in the chat. Will they send?
I'll send them through Joseph.
They'll come through. We requested the presentations will pass through Mr. Malambo, and you also actually pass them on to us, so that we follow that protocol. Mr. Malambo, yeah, is that okay? Or there's another thing, Madam. Mr. Malambo, you can run us now into what thanks, then close the break.
As we come to the end of today's seminar, I would like to sincerely thank all our distinguished speakers, Professor Bupe Mwanza, Dr. Nzovwa, Dr. Matipeza Lole. Thank you so much. This would have not been possible without you. I also want to thank Messi, who's been advertising and who's been organizing with the organizers and adding people together. Very productive or virtuous young lady. And also, I want to thank the the researchers, colleagues, students, the people that joined. Without you, it wasn't going to be possible. Thank you so much. And please, we ask that we continue supporting each other in this journey of research. We are here for you. The university is here for you also. But let's continue networking and engaging each other. As soon as I receive the social medias from Prof, I'll share with you so that we can follow and see what is there, and we continue learning and learning and learning. Thank you so much also to my fellow student, Mr. Samuel Mtane. Yeah, you really been of great work. Without you also, it would have been very difficult for us. Thank you so much, everyone. I end here.
Thank you, Mr. Malambo, and the PhD candidate at Mwanza, Graduate School of Business. And as we come to a close, we thank your professors, your parents as a professor, as a doctor. If you don't train other generations to come and partner and work under you and your mentorship, when you have gone, then you have done nothing. Because you need to have another layer of people have to come and take over from you, or have to come and take it up. Or yes, of course, when you are trained, you can be trained as a doctor. And because somebody has been a doctor for years at DFA, you are still under mentorship. For each professorship again is another stage. So we don't take it for granted. We appreciate your insightful presentations and your wisdom and your experience.